Thank you so much again for being here today at our presentation. This workshop is called All About Ally, Making Your Content More Accessible in Brightspace. For a bit of backstory about how this presentation came to be, my name is Megan Hamilton-Biebert, and I'm an instructional designer with the Teaching and Learning Collaborative. My co-presenter today is Sarah Parker of Accessibility Services within the Success Studio. And together, our interests align about over accessibility and about how to enhance the accessibility of the course experience for your students. One technology tool we now have available to us is called Ally. It is a tool that is built in to Brightspace into your LMS, and it will give you as an instructor feedback about the level of accessibility in the content and materials you're sharing with students. Our goals for today are to show you where Ally is located, as well as Ally's course report within Brightspace, and the type of evaluative information Ally gives you about the accessibility of your content. We're also going to determine how to improve content in Brightspace using the Ally reports. Ally is really informative in terms of it does provide you with coaching to help you solve the issues that may come up. We're also going to discuss a few common accessibility issues and their solutions. I'm going to let Sarah set the scene here. Let me know.
Sure. So we were just kind of talking about some examples of some work that students receive. So this could be an example of an article that's a homework assignment that the professor would say, can you please read this chapter on parts of speech and be prepared to talk about it in class. So would you guys want to get that article to read?
That's tricky.
Yeah. Well, don't worry. We have text to speech available, so you should be able to access it now.
Soft speech y-docsness hook. Begin with hands. OLSPCC.11 111 /liter 1 then 1 ::1 T 11 tilde ideas and soft speech y.
Okay, so we were saying it's perfectly clear what that document includes.
Yeah, don't worry, guys. You have all the information.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just kind of want to bring that to your attention to be aware that some students are either using different assistive technology devices, different tools, and sometimes it's really important the quality of the document that students are being given. And then you can't do it now because it's in presentation mode, but it's like live text. You can highlight it, you can zoom it out. It's just important to kind of, again, think about the student that's on the other end of the document that you're sending out. Like we said, for some students, example one is just unusable. So some students that, again, rely on certain assistive technology or are receiving accommodations from our office to be able to fully access their material would have to work with our office, be approved for that accommodation, send us the document to work on. So it's a very reactive process, and they're kind of getting that information behind other students, and they're not able to equally access the course material. So not only does Ally help students get that material quickly and at the same exact time that anyone else does, but it also helps the professor to kind of be aware, to be kind of proactive next time and think about things to consider while they're procuring their course material. Some data to think about. So there's been some studies that about 19.4% of college students identify as having a disability. And that's a number that I feel like I've heard a lot, is about 20% of students. And then this wasn't the exact data I was looking for, but because this is very specific. So within students with disabilities, within mental health disabilities, within the last couple years during the pandemic, 70% of students with mental health disabilities did not register for accommodation. So that's just kind of, I was looking for some numbers to just be aware that just because a student does not have a letter from our office does not mean they don't identify as having a disability or have some challenges and barriers to getting their course material. And again, we talked about that even if they are working with our office, it's a very kind of reactive, they can't independently access the things, they need to ask someone for help to get that. But also I'm representing student accessibility services, but also I really want us all to be considering that this helps all students. And I said, just kind of think about like a diverse 21st century learners that benefit from this and that would not have had access to all kinds of different material because they may not have qualified within our office. But again, consider people that are commuting and need to be able to do their work and read their articles while they're commuting. People with concussions or people that get temporary disabilities. Think about people that are doing their work on their cell phone because that's all they have access to right now.
English as a second language.
English as a second language. Adult learners that are coming back to school. There's lots of different ways, lots of different people that can benefit from this tool that should be taking full access of it.
The tagline I like is accessibility is necessary for some, but better for all.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is kind of an example that I was kind of getting at about students that are using their phone or commuting. So just one example, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but like instead of having a PDF or say the professor, all they have to do is put up the PDF and then the student, but you'd have to like zoom in and you can only see a certain part and it's also, you can't click it, so you can't have it read aloud to you. So this is just gives an option that students, it's just like a more manageable document that people can use in all contexts.
So building on this, how does Ally fit into what we're doing? If we're placing content in our course, Ally has the ability to let students download that content in a way that is most beneficial to them. But it also provides us as faculty and staff with coaching techniques about how we can improve the quality of the document we're putting in there so that students have that increased access. Ally likes to market itself as being for 3 audiences, allowing students to download alternative formats. You can see that alternative formats button appearing next to content within your course. Students can click on that and pick the type of content or type of format that will be most beneficial to them. Ally also serves instructors primarily, but basically any Brightspace user, anybody who is curating materials in Brightspace, it will offer that center dial next to the content. That is not visible to students or anyone in the student mode. It's for instructor access only as feedback to you as an instructor about how accessible that content is according to Ally's metrics. Finally, Ally offers us an institutional perspective on accessibility in our LMS. And so there is some data that we can collect on a higher level to see what our greatest needs are as an institution and prioritize our solutions there. So this presentation is largely instructor focused, but again, anyone with instructor privileges in Brightspace can benefit from it. You'll see Ally in your course in 2 areas, either as a dial next to the individual content, in color green, yellow, or red, depending on the severity of the issues detected within that content. There's also a course report available within your individual Brightspace course that provides a summary of information about the accessibility. Help highlight the most common issues and the easiest to fix issues as well that help you with your planning in terms of Brightspace access.
And then I see it on there, just important piece that it's not visible to students. They're not seeing that that lever, those colors or anything. So yeah, they're not able to see that.
For instructor eyes only. What we have planned, we weren't sure what type of turnout we were going to have today, and we weren't sure what sort of devices you would be bringing with you. But if you do have access to a Brightspace course that you're interested in exploring, you're welcome to do this on your own, or you can just follow along with what Sarah are demoing. But we're going to head into a Brightspace course and look at both of those areas. Sarah, I'm going to let you talk, but I'm going to navigate. Brightspace?
Sure. So you can go to content. So this will be, again, where all that information, all those documents, we kind of have a wide range of examples there. And again, there's that dial to kind of give you a quick information. And also just to point out that like, there's a lot of in between, and there's, once we click on it, we'll talk about it more, it's like percentages and things. Green does not mean like you're all set 100% good to go, and red does not mean like this is terrible, throw it out. So you can pick either one.
All right, let's do a low and a high perhaps.
Sure. Oh, this is very low. So this is 0%. So this was a PDF of like a scanned document. So essentially it's just like a picture. Like that's what it's picking up, that there's like something here, but we don't know what it is. So on the right over there, there's that dial. So again, it's telling you 0%, this PDF is scanned. So you can say, what does this mean? So that kind of hopefully says what I just said pretty much. It's just like saying what this document is. It's not live text. There's not much it's not a very accessible document.
So the handy thing about Ally is that it has a lot of this coaching automatically built in to try to help describe the situation you find yourself in.
Yeah, so again, it had just said like, it can't be searched for people that are like looking for keywords. If you're using a screen reader, it'll just say like document, like you won't be able to get anything out of it. So then the next part of it is like how to fix this. So not only is it telling you what's the problem and why is it a problem, like why is this problematic for students, but then it gives you information on how to fix it. And we're gonna, after we kind of explore this, we'll kind of talk about a couple of the main problems that we see coming up a lot and some suggestions.
And to be clear, this is the first presentation I think we've done on Ally, at least this year. And so we imagine it as the start of the conversation rather than end of the conversation. So we anticipate additional content and coaching sessions to address things that we may discover as we use Ally.
So this one is pretty good. Again, it was green, but it still has a couple different things to fix. So if you have a title, it'll tell you why that's important, and then give you some information on how to fix that. And then also just to note, so right to the left of that is that A with the arrow, and that's where it's showing the alternate formats that students can pick from to use it. And faculty too, you can get your staff, you can do it too. I use this a lot actually myself when I was the person changing documents. I would often put it into Ally and pull it out as something else that would be easier for me to work on. So that's something to keep in mind too, that you're also able to download those formats. The yellow one, that's all about too. Does not have headings.
And same sorts of coaching and solutions oriented in terms of the responses.
Right. So again, it's the what's wrong with this, why is this a problem, and then how to fix it.
So to get to the course report, you usually find this in your nav bar under all course tools and Ally course report. The alphabet puts it at the top.
Yep, so then this is kind of what we were showing at the beginning. So this is showing all of, on the left is that dial that has all the course content. It has the breakdown of what's in my course, the different documents, PDFs, and then on the right there is some guidance of where to go from here. And those are like kind of the two different ways that we tackle it. Content with the easiest issues to fix, so stuff that you could just kind of go in quickly, just those are all set, don't have to worry about those anymore. Or you can focus on the ones that need the most work and kind of get those up to, even if those can get 50% or something, that just they're available for students to access them in some way.
suggested solutions. And again, these are ongoing solutions that as we gain more information and more comfort and skill with Ally, we'll be able to have even more comprehensive advice going forward. But scan versus OCR PDFs.
Sorry, just to interrupt you. That's exactly what we were saying too about like this is the start of the conversation. We're in this with you to figure this all out together. So like as things come up, we're working on solutions to kind of all figure out the problems together.
So fancy acronym, OCR,
OCR.
Optical character recognition.
and that's like a special machine, basically.
It just means, again, taking that kind of, it's all working together. What we just did with that document from the Carroll Center, we OCR'd it. So we took the characters that were there, we took the image and turned it into text.
But that is a common observation that we're seeing in multiple courses here, and so that is going to be a priority area that we're working to address in terms of what guidance can we give to make this as easy to implement as possible. Alt text on images is another common concern that we're seeing. If you're not familiar with alt text, it is a description of an image that will be read to someone who is using a screen reader. So if the user is unable to view that image or even just unable to download that image, what is suitable text that can be read to describe the context, function, and purpose of that? This is, I'm sorry, we both get really excited about
We
this.
did. We had a whole thing. We were like really geeked out about alt text, and we could do a whole thing on it. But yeah, so it's different than the caption about the text. It's literally like if you were on the phone describing that text to your friend, what would you say? And like again, what's important to know about that? And it is something that comes up a lot, and that'll be something that will always come up in the gauge if it's not in there.
And fun fact, gifts need alt text.
They do, because you're not going to leave anyone out of a joke. That's the thing. A lot of times people will say, I'll work with people that are presenting. I'm like, oh, this needs alt text. And they're like, oh no, like they just mark everything as decoration. That's not important. But like you're leaving people out of the context. Or I had this situation with people with instructors that had funny jokes or funny things as their Zoom background that people were missing out on. Exactly that.
But if it wasn't a funny joke, then they didn't.
Right. I also think about it, I'm not sure how many people like can relate to this, but I'm a podcast listener. And the fact that I can have a podcast host describe a picture to me that I'm not seeing and I still feel like I get what they're talking about, I think they're like exemplars of the types of ways you can, describe a picture. So, I don't know.
So coming soon to a workshop near you, will
Mhm.
probably be an alt text
Cool.
session from us.
That'd be fun.
I'm passionate about captions on videos, so I do want to just chat a little bit about that. Ally is limited to only checking for captions on YouTube videos, but it will check for the presence of captions, but not necessarily the accuracy of those captions. So keep in mind if you're sharing videos, even if they have captions, they still may not be 100% perfect. YouTube has pretty decent auto captioning. It's improved a lot since I took an interest in accessibility, but it's not 100% there yet.
So like in that original example I had at the beginning of like the terrible speech, if that was in a YouTube video as like the captions, it would say, yep, it has captions, but it's not knowing that those are useful to anyone.
Some alternatives to think about with videos in terms of captionings. I do want to do a plug for LinkedIn Learning. There's a lot of useful information in LinkedIn Learning. Ally will not check these for captions in particular, but LinkedIn Learning's videos typically always have both captions and an interactive transcript. So if you're looking for engaging content that's also going to have pretty high accessibility, I recommend checking out LinkedIn Learning. Also keep in mind we have Panopto. So anything that you're recording yourself, you can upload into Panopto, and then there is an auto captioning process built into that. It's fairly easy to use. It'll generate auto captions that you can quickly go back and edit for accuracy and then share with your students. You'll often see a 98% score on very simple HTML files, and that's because due to a quirk with Brightspace, it's not automatically going to define a title or a language set. So you'll get that feedback in the accessibility score. If there's not a designated language set, and there's not a title in this. If you're comfortable using HTML coding, all you need to do is copy and paste that box information into your HTML code, and that should resolve the issue. We're going to have further guidance on that. I know there's different HTML comfort levels at this university, but it's a relatively minor issue in the grand scheme of things. But for those 100%ers in accessibility, it's frustrating.
That's what I was just gonna say, yeah, if it's missing this, it's not the end of the world if it's missing that, but I've definitely worked with people that are like, that 98% is like burning them, so.
Yeah. So that takes us into our do's and don'ts. Just to summarize, do encourage your students to use alternative formats. Realize that's a download option for them. You can promote that to them. And use Ally to review your scores, issues, and feedback, and start identifying small but meaningful changes you can make. The don'ts are kind of the counterweight to that. Don't try to fix everything in one go. You'll exhaust yourself and cry. Don't assume that green means perfect. Accessibility is a journey, not a destination. And there's always ways that we can improve, even if we get to that 100% score. Which is why I also advise not getting lost in the numbers either. Just use the numbers as feedback to help you figure it out. So that's about all the material we have. This has been Megan and Sarah. Our contact information is here. The rest of this presentation, we just have a couple of resources that you might find helpful. I will be sending out the slide deck to y'all that is available through a tiny URL link. That'll be made available in the email this afternoon.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So with that very first example that showed up as 0%, even though it was a document that was, typewritten, pretty clear type, like all this, ironically, from the Carroll School for the Blind, and that Carroll Center one. And one of the first things they asked, well, do you have the original of this document? And I totally understand why they asked that. But let's say we just had this. Can I see what the alternative formats would be available for this? Are they doing that type of work ahead of time? I just would love to see that. I'm so sorry.
So a couple things. So great question. And that's a good thing to bring up. And ahead of time I jumped at that because it's not doing it ahead of time. It's only going to convert it once a student clicks that they want this. So then it'll start the process to kind of do that. And yes, we can show that of what it looks like the students that I want in this format.
Okay.
It's not going to be the best. It's something though, which is what I said I used to use. I would put it in there and pull it out.
To convert it in that way. Oh, interesting. Okay.
So do you want to download it?
Yeah, let's see what happens.
Sorry, I don't want to take too much time.
No, I think it really relates to what we were leading up to.
Okay. And I just saw how many options there were there, and I've been using Ally for a few years, and sometimes you don't see that many. And so I was like, oh wow, this is kind of cool.
Yeah, the Beeline reader. Really
The
cool.
Beeline reader, that's what also caught my attention. Okay, so this could take a few minutes, which is I understand. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even call that a few minutes.
Yeah, the waiver magic.
That looks so good.
Yeah.
Okay.
HTML too is usually.
And then it's browser accessible. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, happy to. Glad you asked that question because that is a common thing we see is scanned PDFs do automatically receive a very, very low score in Ally's metrics. And so that is a big concern that I think we as instructional designers are going to prioritize addressing. And that is the first question that coaching asks is, well, can you get access to the original file? And in many cases, that is no. One solution we're exploring is a partnership with the library to help determine how the library can help us with original access and more sustainable way to post things in your course like that. However, as we just demonstrated, there is an alternative format option. It may not be perfect, but it may be better than nothing given the circumstances. Encouraging your students to download an alternative format or downloading one for yourself and then re-upload it.
Thank you so much.
Specific questions. Any other thoughts or instincts or,
So in the Brightspace itself, it has a accessibility checker within the like content creation thing. How does that interact with this?
right?
Still
So-
there. It's just separate, right?
It's a little bit more limited to HTML. What you're asking about is if you're in a content editing window, there is a Brightspace accessibility checker. It's not as robust as the Ally tool because it's not going to be reviewing the quality of the documents you're uploading, but it is going to give you additional feedback and information specifically if you're sharing primarily text-based information. It's going to do that. So it's another tool in the toolbox, basically, and there will be overlap between the types of things that those tools are checking for.
Is it like if you're using the Ally, then kind of like you don't need to use this one because it kind of is going to cover it? Or?
That's how I use it.
I would say when in doubt, do both, because you get multiple perspectives on accessibility that way. But Ally is a little bit more robust.
Yeah, and I would say these are probably reminders again of while you're creating it from the beginning to kind of remember to keep it more accessible when like going back, it's like again, checking it all and seeing what you
Good
can
point. Nice.
What other questions or curiosities?
or ideas or anything.
Just to share what's going on in the chat, test to confirm Ally is going to check the accessibility of uploaded documents. Checker within Brightspace is just checking the accessibility of the information within that content editor. So two different perspectives, but both geared towards accessibility.
And there's some overlap because Ally will check those content.
It said Ally, Blackboard Ally. So is Ally a product of Blackboard?
Yes,
That's hilarious.
Ally is a product of Blackboard, but it is available in multiple LMSs.
We were wondering if anyone was going to note that first slide. you
Yeah, it's like
said-
Blackboard.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
only logo you can find on the web too, is Blackboard Ally. And like, ooh, it's confusing.
yeah.
We tend to shorten it just Ally to emphasize that we are not using the Blackboard LMS.
You mentioned the Beeline reader as one of the options that students or anybody can use in accessing a document using Ally. What does that help with? I'm not familiar with that.
It's like a gradient of colors to kind of keep your attention and keep your eye. So I've been known that it's kind of helped people read a little bit faster, but also keep your attention to someone who might get distracted who's reading a document. Also, I believe it's kind of helpful for dyslexia also because it kind of keeps it, the different colors kind of keeps it in order, if that makes sense. I think there's lots of information. I'm gonna look up the Ally student FAQs. I think it'll give a better description, but that's basically my understanding of it.
You want to try it, see what happens?
Yeah. Yeah.
So in some worlds, this is an improvement on accessibility. So it just shows that creating, having alternative formats, having what you're uploading be compatible with multiple alternative formats, helps put the students in the driver's seat in terms of how they can access your content.
And yeah, so it says, why use Beeline Reader? Beeline Reader's color gradient technique not only increases reading speed, but also enhances focus. So it's helpful. It says examples for college students with heavy reading loads. Also, this approach benefits people with dyslexia, ADHD, low vision, and anyone who has difficulty visually tracking or focusing.
That's it. Oh, somehow I thought it was going to be more dramatic.
You can see some of it actually does kind of gradient.
You can
And
choose.
you've got options.
Yeah. you can
Oh yeah, a
choose
lot of
the
people
contrast,
like night shift.
Yeah.
light mode, dark mode.
Yeah, light mode, dark mode.
So it just kind of like gives different ways it could look. That different people might find it good.
I think your observation that it's like, oh, I thought it was going to be this whole thing is really helpful because it's like, for somebody that could be massive, and then somebody else is like, oh, yeah, I didn't really notice. Like, I'm neither here nor there. There's something for me. I'm not colorblind, I'm seeing, oh, there's some things that are green, or sorry, that are red, some things that are blue, some things that are black, but like, yeah, like it doesn't even have to be that extreme of a transformation, but it could be helpful. And so I like how many options come up when you do look
Yeah.
at those.
So in the original text, was it all one color?
Yeah, it was all
Okay.
black on white.
Okay, so this just kind of makes it, yeah, it's not supposed to like highlight certain parts of the text, it's just kind of breaking it up a little bit.
Mhm.
I just also did like, I mean, I don't know how quickly people were like looking through it, but one of the other formats is audio. I know a ton of people who, again, now I'm back to like podcasting, but who will be listening to audio versions of their stuff. Yeah, while they're commuting. It's just like better for them to do that. And so, yeah, just there's so many options. It's really nice to see.
And for me personally, I always like, I think it's a learning strategy too, for if I'm trying to get through something, I'll have it playing the audio while I'm reading it to
Yep.
kind of help with that. So that's something that I suggest to students sometimes, of downloading both of those and like using, and you're not tied to one format either. You can try all kinds of stuff, see what works.
Multimodal.
Yeah.
I love it.
Oh, and again, there's also like different languages. You can download documents in a wide array of languages too. Again, that's another part of that diverse learner that we're talking about.